I read a total of 4 books in the month of April, and one of those is Reaching, because I actually finished it on the first day of May. We're going to talk about it anyway. Hello everyone, welcome back to A Fictional Escapist. My name is Kris, and today's video is a very quick April wrap-up. I was debating whether to push this into a May reading wrap-up, but you know what? This is what I read in April. Let's just go with it. One of these is, like, I technically finished it in May, but it was like in the first half an hour of me being awake. It was the end of an audiobook, so I'm gonna count it in the month of April, because I would like to have an even number of books in here, because that's who I am as a person. Before I do jump into the reads, make sure you check in the description box down below for links to my social media and Discord, should you want to come along for the ride. Now, that being said, I did read a little bit more in April, but they just carried over into May, and the first Reaper's Gale, which I started in the month of April, I ended up finishing on like the 10th of May. So it took me a hot minute to read that one. I think it was about 6 weeks in total. I'm pretty sure I started it at the end of March even. Anyway, that book took me forever to get through. Actually, I read 6 books. Yes, because I did 2 beta reads and I can talk about them and they count. Yes, okay, I read 4 books that I can sort of talk about and show you now, but I did read 6 books in total because I did 2 beta reads. Let's talk about those. The first beta read I did was The Blood of the Cami. This is by Baptiste Pinson Wu, and this is a... When I said I would do the beta, the author sort of said it's for a younger audience, but this is rather violent. So I would caution younger readers into it and say that it still reads very adult, even though the main protagonist is quite young in the story. And I think it is accessible to maybe people in their teenage years, if that's... I would have picked this up when I was in high school. Is probably the best way I can say that. I would have really enjoyed it. This was a really fun take on like fee and demon hunting. It was action-packed. It was bloody. It had some really gut-wrenching moments, I should say. There's a lot of emotion packed into quite a short story. I'm really looking forward to people picking up The Blood of the Cami, because I think it is a really fresh take with some fun magic in there. If you've read The Last Fee Hunter this year by Celine Goldenberg, I want to say, then you'll very much enjoy Blood of the Cami when that one comes out. I had a great time on the beta read. Very little work needs to be done, in my opinion, on that book at beta stages, and you know it's going to be a good book when that is the case. The second beta read I read was for Rob Lee, and this is The Performances of a Death Metal Bard. And this was such a fun combo of like campy fantasy bard story with just a grungy edge. It had some throws to death metal bands and obviously a love letter to the music genre. It has its own playlist. This was done in like 4 performances or like episodes, but it was called performances in the story surrounding this mysterious lute and this main character who's looking for a lute to suit his sound, or an instrument to suit his sound, realizes that lute is possessed. And the mystery sort of unfolding of who did the people that are in this lute wrong. And that was a bit of fun as well. So those were the 2 beta reads that I read in the month of April. Jumping into my 4 reads that I can sort of show you and talk a little bit more about. One was a complete mood read, and the mood that I was in sort of took me off guard, because I'm still about 50-50 on this entire series, and that is The Dragon Reborn by Robert Jordan. It's been about a year since I read The Great Hunt, which is book 2 in the Wheel of Time, and I can't stand Rand. He's one of the most annoying characters I've come across, but my wife said, hey, give book 3 a go. He's not really in it, and you get a lot more backstory of the Aja and the Tavalon, like the tower, whatever they're in, and just the women of the group. And I had a great time with this because Rand was in like 10 pages, but I think the next book is very Rand heavy, so we'll see how that goes. The narration done by Rosamund Pike is fantastic. She's such a talented narrator. If you haven't listened to those versions yet, say what you will. Some people hate the show. I didn't hate the show. I don't hate the books. I'm just not a fan of Rand. But I did really enjoy the exploration and world building. There's very few authors I can think of that do world building and foreshadowing as well as Robert Jordan is doing in this series. And knowing that there's another, 11 books in it, is sort of, that's what's keeping me going, is the world building is so good, and at the forefront, I'm a world building guy, and I'm really enjoying that, and the expansions of the I can't even remember the names of them, but the Children of Light in there in this book has me really intrigued, and to sort of see the backstories of those two groups coming up together. So I'm interested in basically everyone but Rand, but at this point we know he's a fairly big part of this whole overarching plot. So maybe it's because I'm not a big Chosen One fan either. I don't know. But if you think I should keep going because I've done book 3, let me know. I probably will. It just may take me another 12 months before I pick up the next book. Who knows? And then I read a couple of short story collections, some horror short story collections, because I just needed to tick that completion itch, because Reaper's Gale was taking me so long, and Inferno was taking me so long to get through. So I picked up The Trees Grew because I bled there. This is a short little short story collection. This is fantastic. Eric LaRocca, I've said it once, I'll say it 100 times more. I probably already said it 100 times. Anyway, I'll keep repeating myself. Such an underrated horror author. The way they capture heart and the human condition, and just how horrific that can be sometimes, is so beautifully done, and I will never stop screaming their praise. I just think this is fantastic. There was one story in here which really stood out to me the most, but I don't want to give too much away because they are very, very short, so you'll have to read it and find out. These short story collections, like, I think the whole book is maybe 120 pages for everything. I read it in a day. It really packs a punch. I couldn't put it down. I just wanted to keep going. So addictive. And I really just love Eric's writing. And then I picked up Cruel Works of Nature. This was Gemma Amor's first short story collection. Inside 11 novelettes or novellas that get progressively more horrific. Now, I didn't love some of these, but at the same time, they were all entertaining. Every single one of them was entertaining. They got better towards the end, in my opinion, as the writing and the experimentation sort of expanded a lot more. I am very interested in reading more from this author. I've got one on my wish list. I've got one behind me that I bought, an anthology that Gemma Amor is part of, and I'm looking forward to just reading and discovering more of their works as they go on and as she continues to write, because I think there are some really good writing chops in here, and I just love a horror short story. I don't know what to tell you. There is another short story collection that Gemma Amor has done, which I'm interested in, so I'll probably be picking that one up at some point. I'm reading a lot more horror this year than I have since joining BookTube, and that makes me very happy, which is ironic given the genre. And the last thing I'll talk about today is going to be Rascor Plains, which I'll put up here. This is by Phil Tucker, book 2 in the Great Souls, the Great Immortal Souls, I think the series is called. I'm going to count this, even though I technically finished it in May, because I finished it on a walk on the 1st of May. So this is the second book. I can't go too much into detail, but Phil Tucker and this series is progression fantasy at its finest. If you're going to start progression fantasy, start at the top, and this series is fantastic. It is such an interesting blend of slow burn, like things happen super slowly in this book, but because we're always chasing progression and levels and Scorio is never stopping, it still feels like it's fast paced. And these books are chunky, they're like 800 pages long. This one follows Scorio as they try to sort of unravel the, I guess, interior politics of the school and what's happening with the war in hell that they're being trained up to compete in or wage or whatever you want to call it. And the world really expands in this one, where we find out more and more and more of just how intricate this war is and this plot is and what their place is in it. So this book has some of my favorite characters. So Naomi, the Nightmare Lady, is one of my favorite characters of all time at this point. Scorio annoys me, but I'm the guy who just doesn't enjoy main characters as much as I probably should. I always tend to root for a side character or a side protagonist rather than one we're meant to be focusing on. I don't know, it's just always been that way. But I love the Nightmare Lady. There's some great friendships in this book, great progression, a lot more magic, and you get the expansion of the magic and where people can progress. And something that I love that Phil Tucker does, and he did it in Bastion, and it's happened in the Rascor Plains as well, is the little Easter eggs for the next book, which just, it tickles you in your brain and makes you go, I need to read that to understand more about what that thing is. And that is something that I found in his writing. It's just, there's always that little bit of a, oh, there's that little tidbit for the next book that I have to know about. So I'll be picking up Last Rock as soon as the audio comes available, which I think it is in August. I've pre-ordered it. So whenever that comes in, I'll probably pick up book 3 in the series. But those were the books that I read. Very pleased that I read more than 4 technically with the beta reads. I just can't put them on a good read sheet. For the month of April. What did you pick up? Let me know your favorites in the comment down below. If you like the content, give one of those. If you want to see more of it, click subscribe at your will, and I will catch you in the next video. Ciao.